Welcome, everyone, to the JP Network. My name is Paul, and if this is your first time, please like and subscribe, where we talk about all about Filipino content here. We talk about Filipino relationships, we talk about traveling, we talk about all that kinds of stuff. But most of the time, it's about interracial relationships with foreigner and Filipino couples. But with that said, we are going to head right into everything. And I just want to welcome everyone to this show where we do currently stream at Fridays, typically Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please tune in for more of that kind of content. If you like this content, please let us know and give us any kind of other topics, things that you want us to cover. But with that, go ahead. I just want to cover our disclaimer. Disclaimer: our thoughts and opinions are our own. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and there's always exceptions to the rule. These are our own opinions. Please, everyone has their own biases and everything. But if you do want to dispute that, you go ahead and put that down in the comments. But please, if you do want to dispute that, please do it with respect. So, but with onto that, we are going to cover right into our topic. When is the right time to marry your Filipina or a Filipina? And the subtopic would also be how long will it take or for you to actually know someone? And moving forward in all of that, I want to welcome my good friend, co-host Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Welcome,
Hi,
Bob.
Paul. How are you doing tonight?
Wonderful. Hmm.
Um, can I say something about this one here to get us going?
Yeah, go for
Um,
it.
well, since we're talking about somebody that Western men are not likely to be up to date on, it's one thing to know to say how long does it take to marry an American if you're from America, and how
Hmm.
long does it take to know a Filipina. Um, Myself, we got married in 54 days. I think I met her on like March 27th. Um, and then we got married on May 10th. It's like 54 days. Now, did I know her? No, of course not. Did I know enough about her in that time? Yes, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't have risked marrying her. And I say risked with emphasis because there's always a risk when you marry anybody, not to mention from a different culture, and usually in the case there's an age gap and maybe a generation gap. So how long does it take? Um, it doesn't have to take. It depends what you mean by what a man feels he needs to be ready.
Hmm.
Not 100% sure ready, because I don't think you ever know that. But what does he need to feel like he has enough knowledge that he can trust her? And I don't know that there's an amount of time. I know people, or we all know people, who have had relationships with somebody of the opposite sex for years. They're still not married, and then when they did get married, it didn't work out. All of that knowledge was pointless, or at least it didn't help very much. So this is a very complicated question, actually. So that's not meant to scare anybody away. It's just meant, I want to be practical here. I don't think you're going to know everything, okay? Because you would have to think of every question to ask her, and then she's going to feel like this isn't a relationship. You're out to, purchase your next car or something, and you want to make sure it's got the right tires and the right, you know, everything included. And that's just not the way people are. I think Filipinas aren't as picky, so you can marry them a lot faster. It's really talking about two different questions. How long does it take to know her, and how long does it take to get married? You can get married really quick with a woman in the Philippines, very quick.
Hmm.
When I hear people saying, we've dated for 4 or 5 years online, it's like, okay, well, that's just way too long. What is taking so long to marry that woman? Filipinos will all get married fast. If that man is serious and he pursues her with vigor and he says, I'm serious about getting married, here's what you need to know about me. Please ask me more. And here's what I'd like to know about you. Please allow me to ask these questions. And if there's some good rapport there, and she's marriage minded and he's marriage minded, then if you're like us, you can get married in a couple months. Or typically, people take a couple years. That's not, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's plenty of time, though, with a Filipina. Personally,
Yeah.
I think that's plenty of time to know her well enough to get married, but you must refrain from wasting time when you are talking to her, because you have to, if you're marriage minded, your questions will be about relationships, their past, their life, their likes, their dislikes, how they handle stress. And they can get a lot more serious in a hurry when you decide that that person is worth your time and effort. So I think it's up to the guy, really. For example, I know I'm spouting off a lot, but if the guy says, well, I want to narrow my list down to 5 Filipinas, well, he's just already reduced the amount of time he can get to know any of them, right? That's why I'm a proponent of, if you want to know her better and get married faster, well, then just simply date that one Filipina online and nobody else. That is what she wants you to do. And if you give her that opportunity, and you're not wasting time asking silly questions, you know, like, well, there's a place for icebreakers, but that's just to break the ice. Okay, don't just keep doing that. You know, if you're there for a marriage, then talk about relationship things, and then you can get married faster. Or here's the other good side: you can determine sooner if she's not the one. But that's only if you focus on that one woman, and then because she's not picky, and if you're a decent guy, she'll marry you quickly. Now, how much you feel you need to know about her, that's up to that guy. And he'll know that sooner, I think, if he asks her pertinent questions, not like he's interrogating her like she is a suspect in a crime, but questions designed to know her motivations, her inspiration, her past, her hurts, and so on. And, you know, if her English is good, I think she will be happy to talk to you about those things.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with everything that Bob mentioned. I actually knew a particular couple that's in my church, and they actually got married. I think it was like after day 3 of meeting each other. And I did tell Bob about this, and this particular couple, they just it wasn't even that they got along. It's just what Bob kind of mentioned is they asked pertinent questions. They just were so driven into saying, "Hey, this is what I expect. This is what I want. And do you agree? Hey, yeah, I agree. Well, what do you like? What do you think about this?" And I think about, I think that this will work out for me in this way. And I think this is what I deal with and what I understand. And they're willing to just collide and work together no matter what, Bob?
Isn't that what it's going to take anybody? That
Yeah, yeah, it will.
collaborative team effort, that
Yeah.
you're no longer acting or living as one. One of the things I
Mhm.
tell my wife now and then, when she gets really involved, busy with stuff, I say, you're not single anymore. Okay, so what that means is you're not single. You don't have the same freedoms that you had before because you are my wife and I petitioned you here to come here and I need you and I'm going to give you opportunity to spread your wings and learn things here like working and driving, excuse me, even going to school. But at the end of the day, you're not single. We're not roommates. We're not just living together. We
Mhm.
have a life together. Everything about you affects me. Everything about me should affect her. So we are not single, we're married, we are united, and we need to make every decision based on what's the best for us. And the way I do that in my videos, I did a video once about my first question is what's best for my wife. Second question is what's best for us as a couple.
Mm.
And then the very last consideration is what's best for me. And I see a lot of people when I look at the way they talk, and it seems like it's not that way. Their first priority is what's best for me.
Yeah.
This
I
is
have
what
a
I'm looking for. This is what I want to do. In other words, they never get around to talking about her heart, her dreams, her goals, what's important to her. And that's a big distinction of my channel. Some people think, well, I'm a simp for that. Um, I'm in charge of this relationship. There's no doubt about that. And I'll put my foot down when I need to. But I'm not going to be ruling with a rod of iron because I want to be respected by my wife so I don't have to be forcing her to do the right thing. And so we're constantly working to that end.
do you this is one thing I kind of noticed, and I just want to kind of go back a little bit. What you kind of mentioned is typically when people are single, you kind of mentioned the fact that when their thoughts are usually only focused on themselves, right?
That's what they're coming out of.
Yeah.
Singlehood.
And yeah, excuse me. And that's typically, but when you start planning a marriage, when you go through that courtship, because we're Christians, so we date in the prospect of getting married. That's what courtship is. And we're thinking for the future of doing that. But when I was just only dating for the sake of just dating and trying people out, I only really thought about myself. I only thought about, okay, well, what part of this relationship only really equates to what I want in it. But the moment I decided to restructure, like rethink about how I did in my, how I thought about marriage and actually moving into a marriage now, getting married to a Filipina, I started thinking about not just me, but more about us. And that's kind of what you were mentioning too.
But you're a
But
lot younger than I am.
mhm.
When I got married, I was 53. If I had gotten married at 24 when I was looking for the first time, I'm sure I would have been thinking along the lines of myself and just, well, they live their life, I live mine, but we live together, we share
Mhm.
lives. But after 30 years alone, by the time I was 53 and learning from the Bible for decades, I realized that, my role was to lay down my life for this woman. That means whatever I got to sacrifice for her, I'll do it because that's why Jesus was for his bride, the church. He
Amen.
did the unthinkable, unimaginable, and quite silly, really, because from a human perspective, nobody that was perfect would die for somebody that's imperfect that didn't even know how sinful they were or care about the other person. But God did because his love is infinitely greater than what we can even imagine love would be. So, what it tells me in Ephesians 5 is to give up your life for your wife. Now, that may sound like, well, what's the fun in that? If I have to surrender, give up my life for her, be willing to do whatever I can for her good. Well, the point is, marriage is God's idea. And the type or figure of marriage being a picture of Christ in the church is God's idea. If I sign up for marriage, I need to do it his way. That means there are going to be some perspective changes on my part. And and again, I talked to my pastor for years about this. I said, Pastor Scott, what does it mean I'm supposed to lay down my life for my wife? How am I supposed to do that? Well, there's never really a good answer other than the generic, do whatever is best for her. But when you get married and you see the circumstances that come in your life, then you realize, okay, this is one of those opportunities. For example, my wife wanted a baby. And when we got married, I tried to give her that baby. So we found out, my sperm count wasn't very good. And we've done things to try to improve that. And over the let's see, up until last year. We got married in 15, and last year was 23. We're still trying to get married, doing everything we could, and looking into every alternative way that I felt morally defensible. And it still didn't work out. But to me, that was a way for me to say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go through this. I don't even want to think about going through the future with this if it happens. But you know what? I'll trust God to take care of us, and I'll make that sacrifice for her sake, because I knew when we got married that it was important to her. Years later, I knew it was 1,000 times more important to her than I thought it was. Very important to her. And so that's one of the changes I made for her, changes mentally, as in, okay, if this is something she wants as a woman, I won't understand it like she does, but I'm going to do everything I can, no matter what position it puts me in. And remember, I'm older. I'm in a position now, I'm retired. What do I want to do having a child? Well, nobody wants to have a child at 62. I mean, start a family at 58, 60, 62. But that was a sacrifice I made for my wife, because I had learned that I'm no longer just single doing whatever I want. My wife is the one I give up my life for. Another thing is she had some circumstances where she ended up working on a second shift, a different shift that really doesn't suit me at all. But rather than force her to work a shift she was miserable with, I decided if anyone is going to be miserable, it's going to be me. So, go ahead and do that shift, and I'll do whatever I can to make it work, and stay up late enough and take naps and whatever, like I do now, so that we can be together. And because I'm a first shift person, I did that for all the years I was working. Get up at 4 or 5 o'clock. That's glorious. Even getting up at 2:30 on weekends was easy. You just come home from work and drop in bed, on Friday. Get up on Saturday early in the morning. Don't do anything else. Don't go anywhere else. Just get up and shower and go to work. It was great. I love that. But I don't like getting up at 10, 11, 12 o'clock and going to bed at 3 o'clock, sometimes close to 4 in the morning, because I told my wife, you know what, I might as well just stay up because it's time to get up, except I haven't been to sleep yet. So I put myself through that for her sake, to make it easier on her, because it's best for her job, her life. And so that's another sacrifice I made for her. And I'm sure there's been a few others. But my point is, how you lay down your life for her, you're probably not going to know in specific ways until after you know her more and after you are married. And then God brings these situations into your life. And I could say, well, God, I'm the one that petitioned her. She ought to be grateful. She ought to be thankful. She's in a much better situation now. But then that would be like me thinking I'm somehow better than her or more important than her. And the Bible says, in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves. So being married means you have to be humble. Being married means you're a servant leader. You're the leader, but like Christ, come to serve. And he gave his life a ransom for many. Amen. The Father spared not his only begotten Son. There's a lot of sacrifice from God, who is love. So for me, loving my wife meant sacrificing for her, which made it easier to swallow because I knew this was the right thing for me to do. And it has helped our marriage immensely.
Yeah. Yep. That being said, I just wrote this out while you were talking and said Romans 5:8, but God commanded his love toward us, and while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I think this is, you just mentioned this one, and I think this is just a big impact. And I think it even goes further into this through Romans 5, that we were enemies of the cross and Christ still died. And I think Paul even talks about the fact that even a good man, someone would barely even want to die for. A righteous man, even a righteous man, scarcely anyone should die for. But God demonstrated through Jesus, God demonstrated his love, that he would even die for his enemies. I don't know how many people would actually even die for their enemies, but Jesus decided to lay down his life for all. and all and everything that would actually trust in him in these things. And how much more can we sacrifice, not just for people that we love, but even more for the woman that we're going to be with? This particular kind of culture, especially in the Philippines, a lot of them are very much influenced by Christianity. And if you are looking for a Filipina, more than likely you're gonna, and and even on the prospect of even getting married, you're gonna want to have a a predominant Christian background. And no matter what, I mean, me and Bob believe in the fact that you should be saved, but I'm just saying that a lot of these women, they won't even consider you, uh, even the possibility, because you're going to go forward into their relationship. This is a very Christianized culture, and they have a lot of uh, that background within their culture. And you're going to be going forward and even asking their father for a hand in marriage and everything like that. Bob, did you do that with your wife?
Oh, of course I
Yes.
did. Just want to say hi to Mark and hi to Paul for
Okay.
joining in tonight. We're very grateful to have you here on a Friday
Yeah.
night.
Hey,
Kind of late,
Mark.
yes, depending which
Yeah.
one. Hopefully, you can wrap everything else up and and take in what we're talking about here. And hopefully, you're going to be married to, or are married
Hmm.
to a Filipino one day. And we talk about marriage.
Exactly.
Um, and Paul, what was the question there? I was going to answer it before I.
Oh, the question I was asking was, did you ask her
Oh,
parents?
of
Yeah.
course,
Mhm.
because that's a respectful thing to do.
Mhm.
Now, having said that, I asked my wife, "Do I need to ask your father's permission to marry you?" And she said, "No, it is not a requirement." Now, maybe she meant I was talking on a legal sense, which I wasn't. I was just talking on a more or less the respectful thing to do.
Mm.
And she said, "No, you don't have to." But then I thought, well, look, I'm going to take this woman 9,800 flight miles away. They're never going to see her again unless she goes back, and she has 4 times. So if her father says, and her mother was alive at the time, if they said no, no, we want to see you first and ask you a bunch of questions, I'd said, I'm on that plane as soon as I can.
Mm.
Because if he says no, I don't want you to marry my daughter, there's no point pursuing his daughter. It's if not over, it's just suspended, and I'm not going to go against her parents. There is no way. We're supposed to honor our father and our mother, and even if it's with a Western, I say this the same thing. If you're from the West and you're dating somebody from the same state, and her parents have something against you, normally that's going to be if you're younger, then you're not ready to marry them, and maybe you never will be because their parents do not want her daughter to marry you, or they don't like something about
Mm.
you, or they're not sure about something, and you just have to respect them. So if he said no, I would have said, okay, on to the next one, I guess. But he said no problem, and then everybody was there in the family. My wife was there. She walked off to the side, left the microphone open for me. I probably had some notes, and I doubt that I used them because I just started talking to her father. And then the brothers asked me some questions, and we were done. And then I'm sure my wife came back on, and we talked some more and made plans to get over there officially. So that was the right thing to do, and ask them their permission because they're going to be a part of your life as long as they're alive. So I think we need to do that. And I'll just emphasize here, if a man wants to learn how to be a good husband, just look at the life of Jesus and how he regarded the church. The church is his bride. I mean, that's his bride. And before eternity, that was God's plan to give him a bride. He had to die for a sinful bride for that to happen, but he knew from an eternity ago that was going to happen. In marriage and salvation, they have some common threads there.
Mm.
Bible is a great book for somebody that wants to be married. if they
Yes,
follow it, if they obey it.
well, I definitely agree on that. I think the Bible is definitely it's kind of like it's written just for marriage, because it's like God's even proposed marriage just even to Israel through that nation, and he like raises up this little girl and actually marries it and everything, and then a whole bunch of other bad things happen with the nation of Israel, but we're not going to cover that topic. Um, but it's God proposed plan. That's how it is. And looking at Christ, it's literally the Father giving His Son a bride. That's kind of how it works. And it's a glorious thing that we should consider to look into. I know a lot of people, especially in the Western culture, in the West, there's like there's a 50-50 chance you're going to get a divorce here. And it's so bad that so many of us are even scared to death. So many of us men, we don't even want to get married. I actually knew a gentleman even at my work, and this particular gentleman, he just wants to sleep around because he doesn't want to settle down with one individual woman, because he's actually kind of scared if he does settle down with this one particular woman, what she's going to do, what she's going to take from him. And these particular women in the Philippines, what makes them so unique and so different is the way they were raised. They they have this whole uniqueness to them that no matter what, they will pretty much stick through you to the end. They're really super loyal, don't you think, Bob? They're loyal.
If they're loyal,
Mo-
if they're loyal,
Most of them.
you get past the ones who are only looking for some money, and
Hmm.
they are loyal. There's no divorce in the Philippines. That doesn't mean that, well, humanly speaking, there's always a way that people find a way around that, like
Yeah.
mistresses. And it's a terrible thing that they don't allow divorce for infidelity,
Yeah.
fornication, adultery, but they don't, and so they just end up being separated and can't marry anybody else. So, very bad
Mhm.
thing. But
Yeah.
generally, they're used to getting married if the woman you're marrying has both parents still married. In other words, they haven't divorced. Well, then that's probably going to rub off on her. She didn't see her parents separate. She doesn't want to be telling family back home that I'm separating from my uh, husband, and it's kind of an embarrassment for her. She's going to leave everyone and everybody, come to the West, and then get divorced. It's a
Yeah.
shameful thing for her. She's not going to want that to happen.
Yeah. And
The
I can
husband
think any.
can't take advantage of that. He's got to
Mhm.
love her, and love her some more.
Mm.
He wants to keep that marriage solvent.
Yeah. I think even like looking, because what you mentioned, like shameful, I think when these parents, especially because they have a lot of kids usually, and how many's in your wife's family?
Well, brothers, one, two, sisters, probably four.
Okay. Oh,
Well,
okay.
maybe another half sister or two. So
Oh,
20,
okay. You said 20?
plenty.
Oh, plenty. I was like, what? 20? Oh, I know my my wife, she's like the middle child out of 10. But there's still plenty of people, and the way and the prospects of how they get married and stuff like that. Typically it's really interesting how they get married. They only allow one marriage per sister per year, and there's like a big old taboo thing against that.
Is
And
that for
the old
brothers too, or just sisters?
I think it's just sisters. I do. I think it's just sisters, because and usually it's like the oldest sister has to get married off first, and then some other issues about if a younger sister wants to get married before an older sister has been arranged. Sometimes you have to pay something, but they're kind of doing away with that. They already know that's not really good, but that's what they were kind of doing back in the day. It's kind of pay me so I can get married before you. It's kind of a bad thing.
Well, my wife was the oldest, and she did get
Hmm.
of the sisters, and she did get married first, and then the middle
Yep.
one got married, and the younger one has been talking to foreigners on Christian Filipina. She's going to see
Mm.
one coming up in a couple months. brothers got married at different times. It's possible. I think my wife was the first one in the family that's there from blood relatives
Mm.
that got married. The very first one. So her getting married was cause for a grand wedding in
Hmm.
Davao City because she was the first one. And her mother wanted a big wedding because of that. My
Yeah.
wife fought her on that because she was saying, Bob has a budget. He got so much money for this trip. We're not going to go above it. But I told her, look, hon, it's okay. Go above it. So I think she just decided we would spend less on our honeymoon to spend more on the wedding, which she didn't have to do. I would have spent a lot on both of them. Um, this was a big day in my life. So she was very concerned about not going overboard with expenses. And it was a great wedding. I can picture it like it just happened 5 minutes ago. What a wonderful day. And I hope people here watching our channels will be able to experience that. And then the long patience you need to wait to be together if she's going to come to your country. And then you've started that life kind of all over again. The relationship, I think, starts all over again once you're together. So you
Yeah.
better learn as much as you can about her. But then once she's there, that's just when it gets interesting because
Mm.
now you're going to really learn about her. How long we started out talking about to take to know the Filipina. One of the reasons I think you can't tell right away is because you're not married to her. You're not
Mm.
living together. You're not dealing with work schedules and how people react to how people treat them or talk about them or gossip about them or how they handle injuries or pain or how they handle problems back home when they're here. And things will happen that you have not been able to experience while you were dating. To me, the dating is the simple part. What can go wrong? I mean, thousands of miles away, what can go wrong? They're either somebody you want to marry or they aren't. But once they're with you, then you start finding out about their temper, if they have one, their patience level, how patient they are, how much they care for other people. And you always want your wife to grow and learn. And, you know, 1 Corinthians 7, 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7 will tell you how to be a godly husband, how to be a husband that your wife will stay with you. Just do those things because that's a description of love. If you're not doing those things, you don't love your wife. Simple as that. So God has made it very clear what your responsibilities are. And I speak in the sense of men because I'm not interested in talking to women. Even though on TikTok, most of the viewers are probably women. Um, I don't want to give advice to women. That's not my job.
Mm.
That's older women's jobs, not men. That's for sure. Not her husband. Older women are to tell her how to be married, how to love their husbands, how to love their children, and so on.
Do
That's
you
not my
think do you think people need a mentor in their life, especially a marrying like a mentor, either
absolutely,
pastor
absolutely.
couples
I
and
still
all of
have.
yeah,
I always
exactly.
have. I have for
Hmm.
most of the last 35, 40 years. When I was wanting to be married for the first time, probably 1985. Um, I started looking for people, actively seeking them, to find someone I was comfortable with that seemed to understand how serious it was for me to get married. And
Hmm.
sometimes it didn't work out. They just didn't quite feel as that marriage was as important as I did, or they
Mm.
misunderstood the Bible. But I was able to most of the time find people that were in my corner, would pray for me and help me. And my pastor, who I knew before I met Isa, about what, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we still meet whenever I want to meet with him, whenever I think I need to meet with him. And he'll tell me what I need to know and what I need to do. He's not going to feel sorry for me. He's going to remind me of my marital responsibilities. That's what I want. I say, Pastor Scott, here's what's going on. Here's how I feel about it. But what's the best thing to do? how do I handle this? What direction should I have? I'm not saying that to badmouth my wife. I'm saying it so we can stay together for the rest of our lives. That's the testimony I want. That you can marry a woman from far away quickly, age gap. And if I love her the right way and treat her the right way, she will respond to that and be loyal to me. And she has been, but all bets are off. If I hit her or something like that, if I get physically abusive, she's gone. Okay, because she's let me know that. She's really right, matter of fact, up front. You do that, I'm out of here. I'm not going to tolerate being abused. And well, I don't blame her, but I'm not going to do that. But that goes for any man, any woman. You touch her, it's over. She has anywhere else to go, it's over.
Yeah, it should be. I dated a girl previous to my wife, and in my past, before I even had my son, and she was stuck in an abusive relationship, and it was, she wasn't allowed to drive, she wasn't allowed to even have a vehicle and everything, and that particular prospective husband at her previous husband, he basically just got her pregnant a couple times and basically kind of forced her to stay home. She wasn't even able to get out and do anything. But the moment he finally let her have a job, she left. She took off. She took those kids and left them. And it's not a difficult. It is a difficult situation when you face those kinds of issues. And I know it even happens even in the Philippines. There's a lot of happening about that situation too. A lot of women that had children out of wedlock with these men, even foreign men. We know that, and it's kind of sad. It's so sad that they actually had to create a government issued marriage counseling class because there's no divorce in the Philippines, and that's called the PMC seminar class. And that's even when I went to take my PMC seminar, that's all it was. That's literally all it was about husbands, don't abuse your wives. And you guys need to talk about money and finances and talk about how to raise the children correctly. Don't abuse children. Don't abuse your wives. Huh? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And don't abuse them in those ways. And then there's another kind of class before they even come over here. What is that called? The CFO, or what is it called?
The Conference for Filipinos Overseas.
Yeah.
They can tell you where to go if there's trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because it happens. That's why.
Yeah, it does happen, and it's serious that way. And those kind of people need those things. They need to know where to go. They need to know these situations. But that's why it's so important to at least. It's so important to at least know this person before you choose to settle down. You can't just have lovey-dovey eyes over someone. I was in Los Angeles airport, and I literally watched like two gentlemen have these big love eyes over. One guy was with this woman, and they're getting ready to go to the Philippines. Another guy literally willing to sell everything and just go over to the Philippines and just figure it all out. But I hear more about, and I even see online about some of these guys, they just have lovey-dovey eyes for just the women over there, and that's all they want to do. They want to fall in love too quickly for this woman when they barely even know them, and they don't even know if they're going to get scammed. But how much have you actually really known this woman? And what you kind of mentioned is that you need to ask pertinent questions. I kind of drilled my wife a little bit about some questions before I did everything. And even when I went back, my boss asked me, he actually asked me, he's just like, well, how'd you know it wasn't a scam? Because I asked a lot of questions and everything that she seemed to say and everything I researched seemed to be true. And I trusted her. She was a godly woman, and I trusted her. And I think that's like the biggest step in the right direction is if she's truly a godly woman and you're a godly man, and you absolutely know that for sure, and you guys really stand on God's word together, I think you will, no matter what you face, you will probably be okay in your relationship. I mean, it won't be all roses and dandy and everything like that, but you will face trials no matter what. I'm sure Bob's faced some trials. I know I've faced some trials with my wife, even being in long distance relationships. And excuse me, I am a little sick, but no matter what, with the Bible being your ultimate authority, what he says goes first, not what I want to do, what God wants me to do. God says I need to sacrifice my life for her. I need to put her priorities before my own. I need to stand on God, and I need to get us to church. I need to stand and make in this house we shall, like in Joshua it says, but in this house we shall worship the Lord. That's that's how I stand on it. And I
Well,
think
no
that's,
blind faith, no blind faith.
yeah, exactly. Well, I know a lot of people assume that faith is blind, but that's not what the Bible teaches.
Well, I mean, look, if you're a Christian and you're praying to God for direction, and if your wife is a Christian, she's praying to God for direction, you should be able to work things out.
Mm.
But part of the question, how do you know when you're ready to marry her, is when you have to know your commitment level, and it has to be 100% commitment. Whether you're going to commit in 2 months or 2 years, is that what you're going to eventually do? Is that what you're looking for? And that means, no sex before marriage. Just get married then. If you want her that bad, just fly up there and marry her. Otherwise, leave her alone. Let her be until the right guy finds her. The right guy, meaning morally right guy, finds her. So if the guy is committed, he's going to lead the whole thing. I'm committed to marrying you. I know it hasn't been long, but I want to marry you. Here's kind of the framework of our marriage that I see as a Christian. This is what I believe in. This is what we should do. This is how we should interact. And if that doesn't appeal to her, by all means, she can say, you're just not the person I'm looking for. My profile, Paul, I think was written so that I was very serious, coming across as wanting to get married. I think it was scam proof, because everybody there knew they couldn't string me along because I wanted to get married.
For the sake of the audience,
talk and give money, then they could all string me along.
For the sake of the audience, what dating site did you use, Bob?
Christian Filipina.
And it's not just this is not just an ordinary Christian dating site. It's not just a Filipina dating site. It is a Christian Filipina dating service. That's really important. We do have affiliate links to those, and I just want to kind of put that out there. And it's a full-on dating service. These people will literally connect you with these women, and they will check and make sure that these women are not scammers. They will go out of their way. If you have any particular questions, Bob, I think you've even asked them some particular questions, haven't you?
Oh, I had to. I didn't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know anything about the Philippines culture.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it on a map.
Yeah. And these people, these ladies would go out of their way just to even help you any which way they want. And there is a substantial amount that you have to pay for this particular service, but it is worth it. It seems like it's definitely one of those particular things. And if you do want to check that out, you can check out our affiliate links in our video descriptions. But with that said, I move forward into saying that you need someone who, like Bob mentioned, is marriage minded. And I think having someone do that, Bob, would you also say that when you go over to the Philippines, let's just say someone didn't want to do a dating service, and let's just say somebody, or even if somebody did want to do a dating service and meet a Filipina, would you also say that more than likely they're going to find someone who is pretty set on marrying? I mean, compared to the U.S., you talk to someone about marriage in the US on a dating site or even personally, they're looking prospect of like anywhere 2 to 10 years. But how long do you think, if you talk to a Filipina, how long before they will immediately jump on the boat with you about getting married? How long do you think that takes?
Well, at least 2 months, probably
Yeah.
sooner. Some people have been
Yeah.
married sooner than that. That doesn't mean they're ready for it, but they did. And you
Hmm.
can find lots of women that want to get married. The problem is not all guys want to marry them.
Yeah.
Some Filipinas, because it's kind of a matriarchal society, some of them can be a little bit bossy. My
Mm.
wife can be like that. I mean, that's a good quality for a supervisor, okay? But I have to, which she is, but I have to remind her I'm her supervisor at home.
Yes.
And sometimes I tell her, you wouldn't talk to your manager like that, would you? Because I tell you, you'd be in big trouble if you did. I can't do that, so please be easy on me. But I'm the boss at home, and a lot of Filipinos are. It's not a bad thing, but they're used to being responsible, making decisions, telling those children what to do, spanking those children, and that's not a bad thing. But a man might not. He might pick up on that, and he might not like it.
Mm.
But I think here's the thing. You mentioned earlier that some men have been divorced. And I
Hmm.
think that's something that really slows down this process because they've been divorced, might not have been a Filipina, it might have been. But the bottom line is they were hurt emotionally and financially, and now they're not sure they can trust someone. Now, that's not the Filipinas' fault. And over there, they don't have divorce. They don't understand what it's like for a man here to have been divorced. Divorce has to, I've never been divorced. It has to be a terrible, terrible
Yeah.
reject, terrible rejection. And you picking up the pieces may take a long time.
I want
She
to
doesn't
jump into that.
understand. He, I
Yeah.
said, well, I've been married before. And she says, okay, well, that's great. She doesn't understand what that means to a man to be divorced,
Yeah.
abandoned.
I want to jump
And
into that a little
And
bit.
that's he has to understand. She doesn't know what that's like.
Mm. I know I've never been divorced either, but I know when it came to my dad's been divorced twice. So,
Mm,
and and it kind of ruined my dad quite a few times, and
yeah.
even in a big trusting issue. And I think especially us, it's really hard for a man to get out of that rut because typically in divorce, especially divorce court, not only does the woman get a paycheck out of the divorce, sometimes she'll get the car, she'll get all of his belongings, she'll get and he'll have to sometimes pay insurance on her and certain items, and like literally the man has to start over, not just emotionally but physically, and it's super difficult for men who are especially been divorced. And I know it was really devastating for my dad to the point he doesn't even want to try to marry another woman now.
Well, and to that point, men who have been through difficult relationships, even if they were dating relationships and didn't end in divorce, like he was married and divorced,
Hmm.
he needs to deal with that before he gets involved with a Filipina,
Yeah.
especially because she doesn't know what it's like for him to be divorced. He can't make the mistake of going after that precious Filipina because guys like me say they make good wives without first having dealt with the consequences of the divorce, his feelings, and also his part in that broken relationship. Because it takes two to stay married, and yeah, it takes one person to end it, but usually, there's a bad person and then there's a response of the other person. And if you're both at odds with each other, it's not going to work. And so he's got to keep that marriage together. But if he's done anything wrong, like he constantly is controlling, or he's bad with money, or he's not working, he needs to own up with that and fix it before
Yeah.
he gets involved with somebody else.
Yeah, I like what you
This is
said about
my
owning up with things. Yeah.
You can't expect
Yeah.
a woman from the Philippines to make all his problems go away.
Mm.
Like they say, you are who you are wherever you are. So you
I
don't
never
fix
heard of that
something.
one, but that's a good one. I like that one.
You go to a different place or different situation. You're still you. And if
Mhm.
you need to make some changes and adjustments and improvements, you need to make them before entering something as serious as marriage.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh man. Paul T said a round rebound relationships after breakups or divorce are a real danger. Yeah, and I was actually talking to Bob not too long ago, especially about rebound relationships. People falling in not in love, but people falling in lust, and we got to be really super careful about not trying not to fall into lust, especially lusting over a Filipina even before we go head toe into that, thinking that this woman's going to fix all of your problems. I think that's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah, we want to
but
heal that pain.
yeah, exactly. I know. I know when it came down to me, before I even wanted to even consider finding a Filipina, I I did get out of a relationship, and I waited, I think, a little over a year and a half, and I just wanted to make sure that I was trying to do it for the right reasons. And my pastor even told me that because I tried rebound relationships, and he said literally my own pastor told me that I'm just going to hurt myself and hurt these women more. It's the
I
truth.
agree.
And yeah, basically I'm gonna wind up either in the same mess that I'm in or even in the worst mess or even a worse mess. And I just need he literally told me that I need to take some time of solitude. And I already realized that since I am a single father, that not only are these past relationships affecting just only it's affecting me, but it's also affecting my son. And because he grew attached to these particular women I was trying to bring in, and I was trying to bring even in Christian women, and it wasn't really working out. But I was super happy that I eventually found my wife though, and they get along great.
Well, hopefully they'll be together sooner than you're expecting.
Me too. Me too. As they talk and everything too, and she treats my son just like her own son, and I like that a lot. Um, because and she really wanted my son to call her mom. And I said, well, you can't exactly force that. It's a little bit different here in America. I know in the Philippines, they kind of want to feel like a parent, even though that they are a stepmom. But here in America, I know when I had my stepdad, I could never call my stepdad dad. I never felt comfortable to call him dad. I had to call him Charles. That's just how it is.
Yeah, and maybe it's different. Yeah, for men than it is for women. I don't know, but I can see how you feel.
Mm, yeah. You had a stepfather too, right?
Well, yeah, and for a while my dad was still alive, but
Hmm.
you know, my father was my father, and there's
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, I know. I know,
there's
but could
only
you call
one
your
as far as I'm concerned.
but could you call your stepdad dad or no?
I call him by his first name,
Oh yeah.
just like you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was a better thing to say. It just
Yeah.
it was and it seems like it kind of mentioned that way. And it's just
So
difficult for people. Hmm?
so how fast does it take to know them, get married,
Hmm.
and then you can start to find out. It's not what people want to hear,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm going to tell them.
Yeah.
You might think,
There
let me take another year and I'll get to 3 years is pretty good. Let me have another year to
mm,
really find out what are you going to learn in that
yeah.
extra time? Probably absolutely nothing, except now you're stringing her along with somebody that's more aggressive, and the aggressor always wins. Somebody
Hmm.
more aggressive is going to go out there and get her, and she should. If you're not committing to her and getting married, I've said this before, those women should be looking around until
Hmm.
somebody puts a ring on their finger. They don't owe you a thing. You
Hmm.
want them to owe you something, propose to her, get up there, get married, and then she's yours and you're hers. Till
Yeah.
then, she has the right to date as many. Now she won't, but she has the right to date as many men as she wants until, I mean, if she's with you, then she's going to give you the first chance. But if you start looking around at other women, she's going to do the same thing, and she
Mm.
should.
Yeah, I
In fact, I
agree.
think she should anyway, because she has no idea if the man she's talking to is going to propose to her, because so many don't. They're afraid to, or they just like the chatting and telling their friends they're talking to this 25-year-old woman in the Philippines, and puff their chest out, and
Yeah.
it's worthless. If you want to get
Yeah.
married,
Look at the
then
women I
ask
got,
good
basically.
questions and get married.
Yeah.
Get married. Take her off
Mhm.
the market. That's your job, to take her off the market, because women don't propose to men.
Mm.
They get married because men chase them down like they should.
Mm. Yeah. I told Bob not too long ago about this, and I think I told him offline on this, and I think Emma McDonald actually said that. I don't think she said this, but she had a guest on that said this, and I think her guest actually said that they're talking in the regards to sex, but it's also, you can also talk about love. But true love and also sex is not something that you find apart. It's something that you make together. And to add to what you said, how long will it take? Well, get married to him and then figure it out.
Well, that's what I'm being
Mhm.
serious, because
Because it's something that no matter what, you're going to make it together. No matter you're going to face these trials together, no matter what.
when I was in radio school back in the early 80s,
Hmm.
1981, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, there were two roommates that they had always been like best friends.
Mm.
They even went to radio school together. Well, so then they tried to live together
Yeah.
when I was going to radio school. That didn't work out very well, because one of them, I remember saying to me after all these years, he said, "Well, you really don't know someone well until you live with them."
Oh, I agree.
This was two male friends that couldn't even last because they probably got on each other's nerves. When you're married, you'll find out, is she messy or is she clean? Does she like to save things or does she like to throw them out? Does she do things differently than you do with, you know, silly things, like when to throw the garbage out, or how much food to save, or how long to save it, or what to buy, or where to buy, how much to buy at one time. When you're together, it's like, okay, well, now we got to make these decisions. And it's like, I never would have thought this. We didn't have to do this when I was with her for a few weeks in the Philippines. But now we have to deal with these new situations that I've put her in by marrying her. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Um, One thing that I know the Bible teaches, and I think in the book of Ecclesiastes or Songs of Solomon. Hold on, let me see. Says, "Gather up all the little foxes before they spoil the grapes." Um, I, you would have to look
Sounds
that
like
up
a
for me,
song
but
of Solomon.
yeah, okay, yeah. It might be in Songs of Solomon, and what that literally references is gather up all the little foxes, gather them up before they spoil the grapes. You have to take care, especially even in a marriage. You have to take care of the little things before they become big problems.
Yes,
That's yeah, that's how it works.
but here's the
So
thing: say
pet peeves
something,
become big problems, huh?
say something, or let it go. But don't just let it go until it bothers you so much that you explode. If you don't like the way she's loading the dishwasher or the dryer, tell her. I have to tell my wife, hon, you put the soap in before you put the clothes in. So I start the washer, measure out the detergent because that's what it says to do, and then it fills up and it gets all soapy. Then you stuff your clothes in there. That's the way we're supposed to
Mm,
do it. So I just, now if I choose not to tell her that, then when she never does that, I have to just let it go. But if it bothers me enough, I have to be able to say, look, it's
I
not
just want
how
to
we
say
do
something
this
though.
here.
I want to say something now. I just found out I was doing laundry all wrong.
Well, it kind of depends on your washer.
I guess, but uh, uh, is yours in the front or on top?
On top.
Okay, I'm doing it on top also.
I would think you would want that. The reason it makes sense to me is you let that water
Maybe
splash in and it
I don't
mixes it
know.
all up and it gets all, because if you put the clothes in first, then how does it know how much water to put in there?
Mm-mm.
You got a ton of clothes in there. So or
Mm.
maybe she stuffs the dishwasher too many stuff, or she doesn't
Yeah.
rinse it off enough. Those are things that can cause little irritations, or she saves food but she doesn't eat it. Little, whatever it is. I'm just naming things that could go wrong, so to speak, wrong. It's
Little
not
pet
really
peeves,
wrong. Yeah,
basically.
pet peeves,
Yeah.
idiosyncrasies. She's got hers, you've got yours. And so how you deal with those things will help determine whether you're getting sex that night. Like they say, foreplay begins at breakfast. And if you want it,
I
you
like
better,
that.
yeah, you better wake up with a good attitude and treat her right, or she is not going to feel close to you. So
Mm.
everything in your life with her is an opportunity, for greater intimacy. Every time you get upset and yell or mock or something like that, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Hmm. I agree.
And
I agree.
this is how you learn. This is how you grow up and mature. You get married. You
Yeah,
don't get married when you know everything. You get married so that you can learn and grow up and be mature.
but
You
it's,
just
if
don't have those
yeah,
opportunities when you're single. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah, and I know, and it feels like that. That's like so counterintuitive to what we're told here in the West is just go out, live your life, go out, do whatever you want, go out, get drunk and party and waste away your 20s, and then you'll figure it out when you finally get married with all of the mistakes and all of the sins that you just had in your life. That now you're ready to get married.
Hmm.
It's like, well, why didn't you just do that in the beginning? It's
Well,
like,
one reason was they probably didn't have a mentor or a parent
yeah,
pushing
well,
them.
obviously, yeah, yeah,
Mentors are good for you. They'll see where, if you're not going in the right direction you should be, and they'll talk to you about it.
yep. Having
And
a
if
good
you trust
mentor
that
is
person
good.
to mentor you, then you'll listen to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do, and even in the kids in the neighborhood, is I'm trying to mentor them in the right direction. Trying to do it even toward my son. And
Well,
I
that's a
think,
given.
yeah, train up a child in the way he shall go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's a
You know
great
how
one.
old that is?
Mm. In the beginning,
Adolescence.
yeah, very,
It's not
yeah,
talking about 80 years old. It's not talking
no,
about old. That's like 60 in the
mm,
Bible. We're talking about old enough to grow hair on your chin. So by the
mm,
time they're 13, 14 years old, if you don't have everything installed, you might not get them back. You've got
true,
to do your job to them while they're there. That's what it tells you in Deuteronomy 6. When you're sitting and standing and walking, you're talking to them
yeah,
about the things of God, and you're teaching them. And so when they get old enough, you see, when they get old enough to leave you, they will be faced with tremendous contrary beliefs at school and with their peers.
mm,
If they are not prepared by you, the parent, they are going to choose the others.
mm,
But they're just going to say, "Father, your dad doesn't know what he's talking about. Your mom doesn't know. They don't know what they're talking about."
mm,
You got to let them
yeah,
know, I do know what I'm talking about, and
yeah.
and we're teaching you the right way. And when you get older and face these temptations, this is how you're going to handle it.
I yeah, I completely agree. I think we're gonna cut it short today. I'm gonna try to leave it at about an hour and see everything. But I am gonna open this up to just if anyone has any quick comments. And I also want to mention one thing before we do close out. Currently, we are currently right here. We are on. Actually, let me go and switch Bob off here real quick. We are currently on YouTube Music, After this live stream, this will be currently played on YouTube Music, and you can actually listen and or watch this whole podcast live stream into a podcast, and you can actually watch all of our previous podcasts also. Plus, I will also be putting chapters into this video on my channel. Just check out the JP Network. You can just type in the JP Network, and you should be able to find us there. In the future, though, I will be putting this show on Spotify and on um I what is it?
iTunes?
Apple Podcast. That's what it is. I will be putting on Apple Podcast. I don't have an Apple device, so I will be putting on Apple Podcast, and I do have a couple currently on Spotify, but I need to keep working on that. And eventually, I'm going to be doing an RSS feed and trying to just upload all of this automatically. But currently, right now, if you want the most latest, you go to YouTube Music and you listen to our podcast. And if you want at least the last three, you can go to Spotify. And in the future, we will be doing Apple Podcasts. So please check that out for us. You don't have to just watch us. You can just listen to us while you're working or even while you're driving. So, but we will be opening all this up to any questions.
Yeah, please ask questions, anything, this is your opportunity.
Yeah. Paul T did say, I agree, marrying young is best, avoiding a lot of sins and baggage. Yes, I agree.
And like I said, you need good parenting.
Yeah, good parenting is a great one. Having good parents to lead you in that kind of.
Right. And one of the things goes back to Genesis, where it says you were to leave your father and mother and be joined to your wife, and the two shall be one flesh. Part of that means you don't go back to your parents and complain about your spouse. You don't look to your parents for solutions. You got to figure that out. You got to make it work. You're not pitting your wife or your husband against with other family members. So that's your problem now.
That is true.
Leave,
I agree.
Cleave.
You leave and cleave. I like that word, cleave. It's like a double word too.
Well, I mean, yeah. What does that mean? Well, it probably means a lot of things, but probably means you don't live like you're separated. You try to have the same mindset and principles and worldview so that you can cleave together much more easily.
Yep. And as Jesus said, let no one tear them asunder. Let no one tear them apart.
That's why it hurts so much to get divorced, because something very precious has been ruined, has been killed.
I think in every relationship, I mean, divorce is the worst, but I think in every relationship alone, it's damaging. I was teaching the young boy that's in my neighborhood. He has a girlfriend now, and I said I prefer if you didn't because you don't know how damaging it would be if you two broke up. You guys can't even face each other. You guys might try to be friends, but it doesn't feel the same.
But on the other hand, it's something they're going to experience. I bet on average, most people go through a few breakups. I've had it in my life.
Yeah.
It hurts. The first one is the worst of all. It just feels like you're never, ever going to get over it in a million years. But that's part of growing up, too, is realizing, okay, this didn't work. Here's why it didn't work. Here's maybe I should look for somebody a little different, or I should be a little different with the next opportunity. And you learn from that.
Yeah. And I understand, but God does tell us that we need to protect our hearts, though. We need to,
But you still have to date.
Mm-hmm.
And if it breaks up, fine, just move on. But that's just part of life is knowing that not every couple out there, not every person out there you think is Miss Wonderful or Mr. Perfect is going to work out.
That's true.
The more you're with them, the more you will see their real self. And the more you are married, the longer you're married, you will really know that wife better. And so that you want to know her, get married. How long does it take to know her? I don't know. How long have you been married? It's a simple answer, but I just think it's people look at how easy it was dating and they say, oh, it's going to be just like this, even better when we're together. No, it's not. You're going to
Mm.
be tested like you have not been tested when you were dating from thousands of miles apart on text or webcams. That's really nice. But until you're sharing the bills and the car, and people are, she's dealing with other American women or other American men. Okay, well, then you're always going to have something. Probably the more busy she is, the more things you're going to have to talk about. I cannot wait for my
Mm.
wife to come home so I can talk to her about her day. I want to know everything about it. You know, what
And
what was bad? Tell me. I want to know.
does she talk to you about it? Does she open up to you about what's going on?
She does, but she
Mm.
doesn't always. She's not always quick on the draw like I am. Like
Mm.
I would, when I was working, I would come home talking about work, where and then get it out of my system. Where
Mm.
she's more like she'll reveal so much at so much over so much time, and maybe 2 or 3 days later she'll say, "Oh, by the way," and then it's like, "Oh, what? That was pretty important. I wish you could have told me 3 days ago." But to her, it
Yeah.
wasn't as important as it would seem like to me. But
Mm.
we get around to it. But sometimes you have to ask your wife very specific questions. Is there anybody at work you're not getting along with? How does your boss feel about you? Um, what's going well? What's not going well?
Yeah.
Um, are you learning? How do you feel about the day? Are you excited? Is it challenging? Or you keep up on things that you already know are an issue, and then you just ask her each day, how is that going? Is that getting better? Did so and so do this? Did so and so say that? And let her know that she can come home to you and get everything off her chest, because I've let my wife know that I think it's best that we get things off of our chest right away. And I
Mm.
think I can help her with that because she's less likely to do that. But just get it out. Please get it
Yeah.
out. If
Yeah.
somebody's mistreating you or somebody doesn't understand you or something, if people aren't listening to you at work, um, let me know, and maybe we can find a way to confront that situation. But I want to
Mm.
know. I absolutely want to know. Even if I was working still, I would still want to know, because I always did. Tell me about your day.
Mm.
I want to know how's everything at home. You haven't talked about your brother for a while. You haven't talked about your younger sister for a while. How are the kids doing? And the more busy and involved she gets with her life here in the U.S., the less she even is communicating with her family.
Mm.
When she was here, boy, the first 4 or 5 years, was a lot, and that hasn't been as much because her life here is changing.
Mm.
She has other people in her life and other responsibilities, and she has just chosen to reprioritize some things and some people in her life, namely family and some other people she's known, and that has to happen. You can't just keep. There's only so much time in a day, so
Mm.
you always have to prioritize. How much time am I going to spend with these family members or my friends or my husband? And you only have so much time. So
I agree.
she's learning and growing, and I know more about her. Believe me, after almost 9 years of marriage, 8 years being together, than I did when I married her. When I proposed in 18 days, all I knew is I thought she had great potential. She had character and integrity, and I all I trusted was that was not fake. It was not phony. I knew she was 26 years old. I knew she would be growing and maturing over time. She was not a finished product. And it's best that I treat her like somebody that's still developing.
Mm.
I'm still developing as a husband,
Yeah.
because once you're married, now, what's the saying? Out of the classroom into the lab. Now
Yeah.
you put your hands on things and you
Yeah.
see what happens when you mix with this with that. And that's what my channel is largely about. I think getting married to a Filipino is easy. Staying married to one is the challenging part. It's not getting to talk to a Filipina. Most of them are very eager to talk if their English is good. And so they can get married very fast if you seem like a decent guy that's learned from his past, can talk openly about it, doesn't, especially if he doesn't have vices, you know,
Mm,
bad
yeah.
language, asking her to show nude photos. I mean, be respectful. And
That's-
I think they
yeah.
want to get married faster than American women. Now,
Mm,
if you want to know her, you'll know her faster once you get married to her. Just
yeah.
don't make a dumb choice and marry somebody that to us outsiders would be an obvious scammer. And this is where the mentoring comes in, Paul. When this guy is communicating with some women, one woman online, I
Mhm.
think it's helpful to have somebody he trusts, whether it's a family member, pastor, somebody he's known a long time. Um, tell them how it's going. Let them ask questions.
Mm.
They say,
I,
"Well, hey,
I guess is
good."
I
Listen,
guess to give some kind of accountability too.
well, yeah, what's wrong with that? I mean, I
Yeah.
think a lot of
No.
people
Yeah.
don't want to do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
if
think that's
this
a good one.
person does and you trust them, you don't always have to agree with every little thing, but you should
Hmm.
at least say, okay, ask me whatever you want.
You mentioned at one point, and I want to close this live soon, but you mentioned at one point that if your pastor even said that he didn't like her, you would have not done it, right?
Well, I would have wanted to know why,
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
but he
but more than
didn't.
likely, yeah,
We didn't have
but
to face that, but
yeah,
you'd like to think if since I was 53 that I would have noticed something as well as
yeah,
you would have.
exactly. And I'm glad about that too.
Obviously, Paul, to be alone for so long, I had an opportunity to be with other people, but if I didn't think they were the right people to be with, I just didn't even get going. I wasn't dating for fun because when you date for fun, you end up in bed the first night. Then you end up struggling with all your might to get out of that relationship.
Yeah,
Now,
you want to
now,
be with the wrong person too, and yeah,
yeah, if the
it's
sex
just
is good, you're not going anywhere.
mm.
So you don't even get yourself in that situation.
Yeah, you don't want to put yourself in a deep dark situation with the wrong kind of person.
I wanted to get married, Paul, and say, look, I'm not seeing anybody. I haven't had sex with anybody in this long. I haven't touched anybody in this long. It's been rough. Here's what I've learned about myself in that time, and hope that she, believes me.
Mm-hmm. Paul T said that I think Christian Filipina, that's the dating service we spoke about, can help with relationship issues and vetting women before getting engaged. I completely agree with that, Paul. Um, I didn't use Christian Filipina, but after talking to several of them, I think it's a good opportunity for so many of them out there that prospectable men who are really looking for a marriage binding woman. I think if you are out there looking for that kind of woman in life, you really want to settle down. I think it's a good opportunity, and I know Paul T especially. Yeah, he's Paul T. Are you finally married or are you not? I haven't been. I can't remember, but I know you do have a Filipino now that you are speaking with.
Paul, one time, I think it was the visa process. I think when I was telling Christian
Hmm.
Filipina that I wanted to have somebody do the visa process, and she wanted to kind of do it herself. And basically, they said, just get rid of her and move on then if she's not going to follow your lead.
Exactly.
So I told her, I said, look, I'm going to do whatever I can to defer to you and please you. But this thing here, it's too important to me. I don't know anything about the paperwork. I think that things can probably go wrong. And I want to hire somebody to make sure we can see each other as soon as possible. And also, so we don't have to be arguing about who did wrong on the paperwork. Oh,
That's
well, you
true.
didn't tell me that. Oh, why didn't you ask me about that before you? Now they're going to send it back. And then, because when they send paperwork back, Paul, I'm warning you, when they send paperwork back, they're not going to tell you what's wrong with it. They're just going to send it back and let you figure it out.
Mm.
They send it back with a note saying that something is wrong, and they never tell you what it is. It's just a
Mm.
standard form letter, and you got to figure it out what is not right. So I said, look, I'm going to do this, or I'm not getting on that plane.
Mm. I
And
agree.
it took all of about 15 seconds for her to say, I'm sorry, I will submit to you and do it as you want. Because I was very serious. If you can't submit to me on this, I know your heart is in the right place. She wants me to see her that she's competent and capable. That's my wife. I know her. I know that now after being married for all these years. But at that time, she wanted to say, look, let me prove to you how capable I am
Mm.
and let me do it myself. Now that's good. But in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, man, this is tough. What if something goes wrong? Even capable people can do something wrong, make one little
Yeah.
big mistake. And this is just too important. I said, what I want to do is hire somebody and tell them, I am watching you and holding you accountable
Watching
to
you.
make sure that there are no mistakes on this paperwork.
Mm.
And I was very upfront with that. I am very serious. Waited a long time. I'm paying you to do this right. And he did every step of
That's
the
good.
way,
That's
flawless,
good.
did a great job. And
You have a good recommendation for him
I
too.
still recommend him to this
Hmm.
day. And I had to tell my wife, look, this is not because I think you're incapable or incompetent or anything like that. Please understand, I just don't want any arguments over these forms. I want to let a professional handle it. But you see, here's what I learned. Again, you learn by going through things. I learned that in the Filipinos learn to do things themselves. They're not
Mm.
used to asking for help. They may not even have any experts. They figure it out themselves. Now, I didn't know that, but that's probably part of why she was so insistent to do it, because that's the way they grow up. We'll find a way. We'll fix it. Let me do it. I'm responsible. And she's saying, oh, if you're not going to let me do this paperwork, you don't trust me. You don't think I'm responsible. And I'm saying, no, that's not it. It's just that, I wouldn't trust myself to do it. And I'm very
Mm.
anal when it comes to details. But something like this, there's so much at stake. I'm going to hire somebody, and she's thinking, well, that's going to cost X amount of dollars. I already told her what it was. And she said, you can save that money and let me do it. Because she's thinking also, not only am I competent and we're used to doing things on our own and figuring it out, but I can save you some money. And so she didn't like that I was denying her on both of those points. But I
Mm.
said, look, we can argue about this, or I can just not get on that plane and it's over. I don't want that. I want to go over there and marry you. I want to hire somebody to do this right so we don't have to argue about it. And
Yeah.
once I laid it out that way, not by threatening and yelling and raising my voice, but just being very matter of fact and giving my reasons, she said, okay, I understand. I will submit to you. And
Mm.
that was that.
Paul T mentioned back that I'm not married, but I'm in a long distance relationship with a Filipina who's about 30. Okay. And that's good. And we hope that you do get married to her. and,
Well,
and
this is the channel and the simulcast live stream to go to
yep.
to
Yeah.
learn about that. I've been with my
Hopefully
wife for a while. Paul's wife will be here hopefully this
this
year,
year.
Lord willing.
Yeah, Lord willing. I'm still waiting for the approval. So, but I know it takes a while, and we're looking forward to it though. And hopefully in the future, I will be adding my wife to this podcast. And that'd be really good. And
30 is a good age, Paul.
yeah,
30 is
exactly.
a good age for Filipinos. So many
I
times men just
I
want the
agree.
youngest ones.
Hmm.
And when you get a young woman, you get an immature woman.
Mm. Yeah,
You just do.
yeah, that's true.
Men don't
Um,
realize that, but they
yeah.
should. They should listen to other people that know better, that
Mm.
know more about the Philippines. And if you got a wife in the Philippines, you got a great source of information,
Mm.
not these guys that talk on the internet that aren't in any close relationship with the Filipinos. They're not even married to them.
Mm. I will mention, and I got to get off here. I got to get ready for bed, but I got to get my son ready for bed too. I will mention that next week we will have, hopefully, I got to reconnect with this guy. We will have a guest on next week, and and me and Bob will be asking him some questions. He's going to be talking about his particular experience in the Philippines and what he encountered, and even giving everyone some helpful tips and tricks of his experience while being in the Philippines too. And I guess even like everything that he's ever encountered, and just a different perspective. You're getting my perspective of my of what I've seen in the Philippines. You're getting Bob's. Um, I guess how many times you been to the Philippines?
5 times.
5 times, yeah, that's what I thought. 5 times perspective of the Philippines, and being with a woman for a long particular time, and then you're getting I guess a new fresh perspective of this new gentleman, and so you can just definitely tune in for us next week, and we will be happy to discuss that with him. So, but yeah, go ahead and tune in for us for that. But with that said, Bob, do you have any last remarks or anything before we sign off?
Well, I have the thought of having regrets
Hmm.
because some men who are hesitant to marry a Filipina and that have divorce in their background, or there's something else, they're afraid of commitment. I'm just afraid they're going to grow to regret it. We have so many hours in a day, every day, but in our lifetime, we don't know how many hours we have left, and or years or months. And I just think a guy needs to be resolved in his mind. I'm either going to get married, get after it, or I'm just not going to even bother. I mean, deal with the issues that are keeping you from aggressively pursuing a woman from the Philippines or anywhere else. Deal with those issues, but stop dragging your feet. Because guys I got married at 53, Paul, and I thought that felt like 83. And now I'm 62. And I'm thinking, boy, I'm glad I got married when I did, but no regrets. You know, don't worry about not knowing everything. You ask her the key questions about commitment. And if you're a Christian, you ask her about God, how to become saved, find out what she know how what her level is spiritually, because the man is the spiritual leader. He usually is going to be ahead of her spiritually. That works out good that way, where he can teach her and bring her along. And so find out where she is, what her parents were like, what her perspective on life is, what her worldview is, what her idea of commitment means. And then, you know, you can go to my website, lvbts.com, and there's a link at the top, lvbts.com, and it says something like, I don't know, resources. And there's a lot of questions to ask your Filipina at different stages. The third one is questions to ask when you're serious about proposing to her. Those are going to be some serious questions to ask. You do not ask those questions in the first stage. Those set of questions are icebreakers. The second set is to move beyond icebreakers, but it's not yet the serious stuff that could really turn her off if you ask them first. Once you've established it, she probably wouldn't be surprised if you were going to marry her someday. Ask her these serious questions. And if there's no red flags after that, you might as well just marry her and do your best to keep growing and learning about her. But I wouldn't worry about, I got to have this whole checklist, every box checked off before I marry her. I got to know everything about her. Because a lot of times with Filipinas, and maybe all women, they're probably only going to tell you and divulge what they want to when they want to. You know, you might want their whole life story. They might want to take 5 years to tell you that. Oh, okay, now that they're comfortable with you after a couple years of marriage, now they'll tell you about their past when it's more comfortable for her. So again, you'll learn what she's like and you'll learn about her past when you marry her. She can't even remember everything you want to know while you're dating her. But don't be afraid. Have good marriage skills. Love, like it says in 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. If you have a relationship with God, you pray about her and with her every day. That should help. That's what I'm not gambling. That's my strategy. That's if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, very good. I went ahead and put that link in there for you.
Yeah.
Questions
Oh,
to ask before you marry.
is that what the link
Yeah.
is exactly? Will
Yeah.
that take them there?
Huh?
Will that will
Well,
take them there? Okay. Well, I trust you. I
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
visit
Yeah.
that resource site very often.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, those are excellent questions to make you feel like, okay, I can sound intelligent on my first date, and I can sound intelligent after a year, 18 months, or whatever. And I don't think it takes 2 years to know somebody well enough to get married. Not if you're actively addressing things and she's the
yeah.
only one that you are talking to. Like I said earlier, the more you talk to, like most men want to do, the less it just dilutes your relationship with each one. And it takes
Mm,
longer to get to know them, faster if you're only talking to one good one at a time.
yep. All right. All right. With that being said, and thank you for that, Bob. And we will catch you guys on the flip side. So,
Thanks for everybody being here tonight.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for being there. Yep. Thanks for the
You're
list
right,
of
Paul, about
questions.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul T said, thanks for the list of questions. Easy to throw a reason out in the window when you're in love. Yep, exactly. All right, guys. And we are going to head out. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.